if you are going to continue, you typically want to continue by 4-betting. You do not want to cold call all that often. So the only options are to fold or 4-bet. Terrace gets in there and battles. He's not folding. 4-bet's the only option. He makes it 6,575. And I think this is a pretty reasonable size, although perhaps I would have gone a little bit bigger. When you're out of position, you want to re-raise perhaps larger than you may be accustomed to because you don't really care if the player in position folds. Because from out of position, you're typically going to under-realize your equity due to your lack of position. That said, 6,575. Doug Polk in position, 10-9 of spades, easy call. Let's go to the flop.
She's almost like she did 75.
Change all the rules.
If you release your hand over the line, it's dead.
Over the line, like over the line.
You release your hand face down over the line, but you can't grab it back.
See, the problem with this is it's more rules that you need to explain.
It doesn't matter.
It's not more rules, it's just a different rule.
You don't have to explain it. You just say if you block your card, leave it in the
You
box.
should have been a lawyer, Mario.
Technically, that's
What that?
the pile of the discards.
All right, then you just say if your hand goes over, if your hand releases over the white line.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you release your hand face down,
What about football?
forward,
Look at you.
yeah, that's a good rule.
Yeah, but what if I drop it right here?
Fucking A.
You guys know Terrace challenge Doug for heads up coming
The
soon.
flop becomes ace, jack, 10, heart, spade, diamond. They both have a pair and a flush draw, but Terrace is in a commanding lead. The pot is 13,900. He goes for a 4,100 bet. I presume he's going to bet frequently and small in this situation, just trying to push what should be a bit of a range advantage because his logical range is all the good premium pre-flop hands, right? Aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace, king, ace, queen, maybe king, queen, maybe king, jack, etc. All of which have pairs and gut shots. Also, a lot of ace X suited, which has top pair. The only bluffs in his range at this point that make much of any sense are hands like king X suited, which you should mix in every once in a while if you feel inclined. And even those have a gut shot. So this is a fine spot to bet frequently and small. Doug in position with his bottom pair, bad backdoor draws, opts to call, getting good odds. This is a dicey spot already. I don't think you can fold in this situation, especially if Terrace is loose and aggressive and battling. And as he has more optimistic 4-bets in his range, like perhaps all the king X suiteds, or all the queen X suiteds, or low suited connected hands, or low pairs, well then now you actually have the best hand a large chunk of the time. I realize Doug does not in this situation, but pot odds exist, right? He has to put in 4,100 to try to win a pot that's going to go to 22,000. So essentially in this scenario, he has to ask, am I going to get more than, call it 1/18 of the pot out with his hand? And you see here, he has 26% equity. You may think, oh, it's easy call then, right? 26 is more than 18. But it's not quite that simple because you have to ask, will I over-realize my equity or under-realize my equity from this point? And you have to realize, if Terrace just best of flop, best of turn James River, Doug's in a bad spot no matter what unless he makes trips. So even though he has 26% equity, I don't think he's going to realize it all on the spot. It's kind of tricky, right? Because if Terrace is going to do a lot of checking on the turn, then Doug's going to realize his equity very well. But as Terrace bets more and more and more often, you realize your equity a little bit less in general because you don't get to the showdown nearly as often. And when you do get to the showdown, it's going to be against a hand like Ace X that you lose with. So this is a dicey spot, but I think Doug simply has to call, especially given he has backdoor straight draw and backdoor flush draw. Let's go to the turn.
Were you aware?
We'll discuss it later.
This is a little warm up right now.
Yeah, this is, well, we're already battling it up a little bit like today.
First up. Then I heard there's JC versus Mariano heads up coming soon too.
Yeah, we're gonna play 2-5.
205? 205?
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna play lower because Doug is
Maybe
like,
would do it.
he's a god.
Round of each.
He's like a heads up god. Like, so
Former heads up. Got it.
not really. Check.
My name is Sherlock Holmes. I've always been more of a thinker than a fighter. I'm curious why I'm being set up for murder. I'm going to solve this together.
At Hamden Stone, members get more, starting with a free facial gift card just for joining.
You do round of each.
The turn is the 7 of hearts, and Terrace opts to check. This is a tricky spot because you have the best hand a decent chunk of the time if the pot stays reasonable. The thing is that the pot's already grown pretty big to where it probably won't end up reasonable if Doug decides to just bet the turn and jam the river, right? So you have to ask, how do I get the money in a way that keeps Doug's range as wide as possible, assuming I'm not trying to fold my ace-5 of diamonds. And I don't think Terrace is really trying to fold this hand. And I think his only good option in this spot is to check, and then check and call. And that does result in you losing when Doug has you beat. And Doug will have you beat a decent chunk of the time with ace-jack, ace-10, pocket jacks, pocket tens, right? All those ones. But he also could potentially be bluffing or turn hands like 10-9 into a bluff, either on the turn or the river. So I think Terrace has a pretty reasonable line of check, check, turn, check river, and just try to not fold. That will result in you not getting maximum value from a hand like King Jack, but there's a whole lot of other stuff you have to be concerned with beyond exactly the few slightly worse value hands that may call if you bet the turn and maybe even bet the river. So he checks. Doug could conceivably bluff his hand on the turn to try to get a hand like pocket kings or queens to fold, or bet the turn and then jam the river to try to get a hand like kings, queens, or maybe king jack or queen jack to fold, maybe even ace X to fold by the river. Doug decides not to do that this time, though. He just lets it check, check, and go to the river.
Round of each heads up.
Killer.
Yeah, the heads in front of each. Hold them in, Taylor.
I would do that.
Yeah, I know you would.
Doug blame me for showing up late?
You don't play PLO?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I am. They sent a black car out for me to play. I really see it, but basically, I think PLO Jesus. Good dog.
Yeah, I would do that. I'd do like a 100K match.
The river is the queen of clubs, and Terrace goes for an interesting, tiny lead. Now, look, I've not studied 4-bet pots in this exact scenario. When you're out of position in general on the river, when the turn goes check, check, betting tiny from out of position with a very thin-ish value range that has something like 52-ish% equity against your opponent's range is not a bad play. I don't think that's the case in this scenario, though, because